My husband and I both believe that when we got married, we became one. But to this day, we still do not co-mingle our finances. And so in this video, I'm going to share some of the reasons why my husband and I have decided not to have a joint bank account. So the first reason that my husband and I have decided not to have a joint bank account is we have completely different assets. Okay. So for my husband, he has a 401k. I have a Roth IRA. And so those are two completely different investment vehicles. My Roth IRA is obviously funded by myself. I don't work for a company. I'm self-employed. And so that's how I have contributed to my retirement fund. My husband, on the other hand, he works at a company that matches him for his 401k. So every year there's a certain amount that is taken out of his paycheck and it's placed into that 401k. So simply speaking, the fact that we have different assets and retirement plans is one reason why we have decided to not have a joint bank account. Along the same lines, we have very different careers. And so my career, since I'm self-employed, my income fluctuates tremendously month to month, year to year. So because of that, my bank account can look very different depending on the time of year, depending on the season, depending on my business demand. On the other hand, my husband receives a set amount of income every 2 weeks. So his income is quite stable. And of course, there are fluctuations year to year, depending on promotions, bonuses, things like that. But his income is very much streamlined. It's kind of to be expected. We can estimate what it's going to be, whereas mine fluctuates so much. So if we did decide to get a joint account, it would be very unequal, right? Because he would be putting a set amount every 2 weeks. And then on the other hand, I would be making a different amount. So my contributions would look much different. So because my husband and I don't have a joint business or a joint career, we feel that it is best to keep these accounts separate because of the nature of what we do and how different those two things are. Now, the other thing that I truly believe in, my husband does too, is having separate accounts allows us both to remain financially independent. So regardless of our marriage, we both feel independent because we're both earning our own money. And yes, of course, at the end of the day, it's a team, it's a we, it's not my money or his money. We're both earning for the whole, but just seeing my number in my bank account gives me a sense of pride, knowing that this money was earned from my efforts, from my skill sets, from my services, right? It's not that I'm looking at the account and saying, I'm not sure how much of this is my husband's, I'm not sure how much is mine. I can easily assess my growth. I can easily calculate my net worth, and it makes things much simpler, right? Because we both have separate accounts, so we can easily track our progress, and it gives us more financial control. I would never want to be in a marriage where, let's say I have a joint account and before making a purchase, I would need to call my husband or, confirm to see if that's okay. The other thing that wouldn't fly with me is, let's say I wanted to withdraw money or transfer money into an investment account. And let's say I would have to call my husband to let him know every time I was going to do that. Now, I'm not saying that my husband would expect that of me, but I would simply do that from the decency of my heart if we had a joint account. So having separate accounts allows us the fluidity and the flexibility to transfer, withdraw, make purchases as we please, and we give each other the benefit of the doubt, right? I don't go checking after my husband every single statement because I trust that whatever financial decisions he's making and whatever purchases that he sees value in benefit the whole, right? There's never going to be a time where I look at him and I'm saying, oh my God, you are spending irrationally, or, I wouldn't have made that decision, because I trust him. I trust his reasoning. I trust his logic. And so I don't need to go and track his every spend to know that, it's something that we can afford, and vice versa. My husband never looks at me and says, oh my God, you spent that much on so-and-so's gift. You shouldn't have done that. Or why did you spend so much on your nails, right? He gives me the freedom to spend as I please, because once again, he trusts my judgment. So this setup simply works for us. I don't think it would work for everyone, because I think that there are some couples who have vastly different spending habits. There are some couples who are not on the same page when it comes to what purchase is acceptable and which isn't, right? Now, we have this foundation of trust, of just knowing that the other person has our best interest. And so we don't need to go checking, confirming, all of these things is just nonsense to us. So separate accounts makes it simpler, makes it easier. It's also really empowering as a woman to have your own bank account. Like, think about it. It wasn't too long ago that women were simply not allowed to have their own bank account. So I do not care if you are single, engaged, married, widowed, have your own bank account, okay? You never know what could happen tomorrow. And let's say for some reason, lo and behold, something were to happen to my husband, I have an account that I can access immediately because it's fully in my name. I don't need anyone to give me the okay to use that money, okay? Now, on the other hand, if we had a joint account, or let's say that there was an account but I couldn't access it, that would put me in a really sticky situation where I wouldn't be able to access funds in the case that I needed them. I've also heard some horror stories of couples who have contributed to a joint account equally over the years, but then when conflicts arise and when divorce is on the horizon, one of those individuals just goes and clears out the entire bank account. And unfortunately, if you have a joint bank account, that's how it works. Either person can access the funds at any time, and it puts you in this position where you are vulnerable to being taken advantage of. Now, obviously, we are talking about a marriage here, so hopefully, you have picked a partner that you trust and that you can rely on. But once again, you never know what can happen, what can come up in the future, and just having that safe place where you have placed your funds, exactly how much is there, you are the one who have worked to obtain that money, puts you in a position of power. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is it gives us better risk management, okay? So like I've mentioned, my husband and I have different kind of things that we spend on. Obviously, my husband, he pays our bills. So he's spending on our mortgage, our cars, our insurance, our phones, things like that. Now, me, I tend to spend on more experiences, gifts, enjoyment, things like that, self-care. And so once again, our spending categories are very different. And so having those different accounts gives us the ability to focus on the things that we are spending on and knowing how much money we have to do so, right? So it gives us better risk management. Once again, we're a team at the end of the day, but because we have vastly different careers and also we're at different points in our life, right? I'm 29. He's 46. So obviously we have different risk levels as well. So I personally love having separate accounts because it allows me to track my progress. So I am able to literally go back 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and see how my savings has changed, see how, I've been able to grow my net worth. And I know that that is simply from my side of the spectrum, right? It's not this situation where I'm like, okay, my net worth is X, but I'm not sure what percent of that came from my husband, right? So Of course, we do calculate our net worth as a couple, but I also calculate my net worth as an individual. So I am aware of how much we are worth as a couple, as well as how much I am worth as an individual. And I think both of these are important because at the end of the day, I would never want to be in a situation where 99% of the couple net worth is coming from one person, right? That puts you in a position where there is an imbalance of power. And that's why I always, always, always encourage women to have their own careers, side hustles, small businesses, whatever it is, so that at least they have some financial control over their life. And they can make decisions from a place of logic, from a place of rationality, rather than from a place of need. Because you hear these stories of these women who remain in abusive marriages, in toxic marriages, in extremely harmful environments because they simply don't have access to their own funds. So in order to prevent this, we need to stay safe, ladies. It doesn't matter if you have a ring on your finger, just have your own account. It gives you that sense of security. It gives you that sense of financial control and power. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, my husband and I view each other as equals, as teammates, and we know that we're both contributing in our own way. We never judge each other for our spending habits, and we both make financial decisions individually. Like, I don't call my husband before I purchase a stock. I don't call my husband before making a purchase because I know that we're on the same page, okay? Now, other couples might have a different dynamic or a different situation, and as long as it works for them, that's all that matters. But I love being able to track my own growth, to track my own progression, and I know that if everything was joint, it would become a lot more difficult to do so. So those are basically the reasons why my husband and I do not have a joint bank account. Hope that it was helpful. If it was, give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below what you and your partner's financial situation looks like and how you guys decide to split things up. And I will see you guys in my next video where I talk about how my husband and I do 50-50. See you there. Bye.